PanAmerican World Airways. So, Pan Am. The name alone brings back memories of glamour, luxury, and a sense of wanderlust that we all secretly crave. Pan Am World Airways, or Pan Am, was once the epitome of high-flying sophistication. If the skies were a kingdom, Pan Am was its undisputed monarch, ruling with unmatched elegance and style. Founded in 1927, the airline was the first to offer transatlantic flights and even introduced the first round-the-world ticket. Imagine that, flying around the globe like you're a jet-setter in a movie. Now, that's what we call status. But here's the twist. Despite being the powerhouse of the skies, Pan Am's golden age came crashing down, literally. In 1988, the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, was one of the most tragic events in aviation history. While Pan Am was once the airline of the rich and famous, it wasn't enough to save them from financial devastation that followed. By 1991, after a string of bad luck and poor management, Pan Am went bankrupt, leaving behind nothing but a legacy and the faint smell of jet fuel. Pan Am was famous for having a clue. They were the first to offer air travel to the masses with their wide-body 747s. If you've ever marveled at the beauty of the jumbo jet, you can thank Pan Am for popularizing it. But here's the shocking part. Pan Am didn't survive because it was too high class. The competition caught up. The 1980s deregulation of the airline industry opened the gates for cheaper options, and Pan Am couldn't keep up with the pace of the market. By the time they started slashing prices, it was a little too late. Can you imagine being dethroned by the likes of a budget airline that served you pretzels in a paper bag? Ouch! To this day, Pan Am's story is often remembered with a tinge of sadness. They were once the airline to travel with, but ultimately, their inability to adapt led to their downfall. But hey, they did leave behind some great pop culture moments. Their logo is still synonymous with aviation class. Too bad that kind of prestige doesn't pay the bills. Transworld Airlines. If you ever wanted to feel like a glamorous jet setter, you needed a TWA ticket in the mid-20th century. Transworld Airlines, or TWA, had a reputation for being the "it" airline. Founded by the legendary aviation mogul Howard Hughes in 1930, TWA quickly soared to fame with its cutting-edge technology and stylish branding. Hughes himself was known for being a perfectionist, maybe a little too much. And this obsession with detail meant that TWA's planes were equipped with luxurious amenities long before they were the norm. You could literally feel like you were traveling in a flying hotel. Yet, despite their success, TWA's story ended like a tragic Hollywood film. In the 1970s, the company was hit with scandals, mismanagement, and of course, competition from other major players like American Airlines. The company's prized possession was its fleet of Lockheed L-1011 TriStars, which were a marvel of aviation engineering at the time. But here's the shocker. Despite all the technological sophistication, TWA's financial problems became too great to overcome. In 2001, TWA was acquired by American Airlines, and it was officially the end of an era. One of the most fascinating parts of TWA's history is its devotion to glamour. This was the airline that launched in-flight entertainment before anyone else. And they even employed their own stewardess to be more than just flight attendants. They were essentially brand ambassadors. You weren't just getting someone to hand you a drink. You were getting a glimpse into a world of upper-crust travel. The shocking twist is that despite their obsessions with class, TWA couldn't outclass the times. It just didn't have that cash or the infrastructure to survive. And before we knew it, TWA was no longer around. TWA's legacy endures in the form of some unforgettable memories. And let's not forget that iconic TWA Flight Center at JFK Airport, which still stands as a monument to mid-century modern architecture. But the truth is, in the cutthroat airline industry, luxury couldn't protect TWA from the realities of cost-cutting, mergers, and the rise of budget-friendly competitors. Continental Airlines. Continental Airlines. There was a time when flying with them made you feel like you were part of an exclusive club, where priority boarding was a perk and the flight attendants remembered your name. Continental was born in 1934 as Varney Airlines, but rebranded in 1937 to become Continental. For a time, they were the pride of the skies, serving destinations all over the world and offering passengers a smooth, high-quality travel experience. Their planes were sleek, their customer service was impeccable, and their reputation solid. But like so many other former airline giants, Continental faced a crash course in reality. In the 1990s, the airline industry was shifting fast. Continental tried to stay ahead with their famously comfortable seating, friendly service, and numerous international routes. Still, the competition wasn't waiting. The airline struggled with rising fuel prices, competition from low-cost carriers, and a general downturn in the industry. A shocking moment came in 2010 when Continental merged with United Airlines, leading to the disappearance of the Continental brand forever. It was like watching a beloved restaurant get bought by a chain that just wasn't the same. Here's something to chew on. Did you know that Continental was one of the first airlines to introduce non-stop transcontinental flights? That's right, they made it easier to get from coast to coast without the hassle of connecting flights, which was a big deal back in the day. So, you could argue that Continental was ahead of its time. However, the reality of the 21st century airline industry, mergers, cost-cutting, and the rise of budget carriers led to the fall of a once mighty player. Continental wasn't able to maintain its identity, and ultimately, its name was retired, swallowed up by the more ubiquitous United Airlines. Continental's legacy lives on in the modern-day United Airlines, but let's be honest, the soul of Continental is lost somewhere in the mile-high skies. Sure, you can still fly to tons of international destinations, but it's just not quite the same. They were one of the last of the classic airlines, and that's something you don't forget. Eastern Airlines. Eastern Airlines, an airline that once embodied the charm of flying, but then just vanished. Eastern was founded in 1926 and quickly became a dominant force in U.S. air travel. Known for offering one of the most extensive domestic networks, Eastern Airlines became synonymous with quality service and high standards. They were even the first airline to offer in-flight meals. Remember the days when flying meant getting fed like royalty? The airline had its heyday in the 1960s, transporting everyone from families to businessmen to rock stars. The Beatles famously flew with them during their 1965 US tour. But here's the kicker. Eastern's fall from grace was a classic tale of bad management. Despite its success, Eastern's leadership failed to adapt to the changing times, and by the 1980s, the airline was spiraling into debt. Competition from the low-cost airlines, along with union strikes and a series of poor business decisions, took their toll. Eastern couldn't survive the pressure, and in 1991, the airline declared bankruptcy and ceased operations. Gone in the blink of an eye. Eastern's legacy might have been tarnished by its demise, but let's not forget the mysterious side of things. For instance, did you know that Eastern was the first to introduce the hub-and-spoke model for domestic flights? They revolutionized air travel logistics before anyone else caught on. This is the model that most airlines, including modern giants like American Airlines, still use today. So, while Eastern Airlines may be gone, they played a huge role in shaping the airline industry. Who knew? Eastern's downfall wasn't caused by a single catastrophic event, but rather a slow, painful death from a variety of missteps. They were like the cool kid who couldn't keep up with the new trends and eventually faded into obscurity. Republic Airlines, US Airways, and National Airlines. Now, buckle up because we're about to embark on a journey through a maze of mergers, acquisitions, and aviation history that will make your head spin faster than a propeller on a regional flight. Let's start with Republic Airlines, not to be confused with any political affiliation, although their rise to fame did involve quite a bit of navigating the political landscape of mergers. Republic was founded in 1946 as Midwest Airways, but its most notable transformation came in 1979 when it merged with North Central Airlines to form Republic Airlines. And here's the kicker. Republic was one of the first to introduce regional jet service in the US, becoming a key player in providing fast, efficient connections to smaller cities. But as with so many stories in the airline world, things started to unravel in the 1980s. Despite its success, Republic couldn't escape the ever-present specter of consolidation. In 1986, Republic Airlines was bought out by Northwest Airlines. But wait, there's more. In 1991, US Airways swooped in and took over Republic's operations, making the beginning of yet another chapter in this tangled web of airline mergers. US Airways, born from the 1979 merger of Allegheny Airlines and Lake Erie Airlines, tried its best to position itself as a strong national carrier, but poor management and endless competition led to a downward spiral. In 2005, US Airways merged with America West, and the dream of US Airways as a standalone entity was over. Now let's toss National Airlines into the mix. Founded in 1934, National was a major player in the 1950s and 60s, known for its expensive routes across the East Coast, as well as offering flights to Cuba. Yes, you heard that right. National was one of the first airlines to fly into Cuba before the embargo, which just screams wild 1960s. But in the 1980s, National became entangled in its own set of financial struggles and was eventually absorbed by Pan Am in the 1980s. Little did anyone know, National's legacy would live on through the mergers, eventually leading to what we know today as American Airlines. Here's the jaw-dropper. Through a web of mergers and acquisitions, we now have American Airlines, one of the largest airlines in the world. And if you look at the history of US Airways, Republic, and National Airlines, all of them played crucial roles in making American Airlines the behemoth it is today. It's kind of like realizing that all those failed attempts to make it big were just pieces of the puzzle that eventually became something massive. But the twists and turns, they're a reminder that in the airline world, success often means playing the long game, even if you're swallowed up along the way. Brenth International Airways and Pedmont Airlines. Brenth International Airways was the definition of flashy and extravagant. Known for their wild and colorful uniforms designed by fashion legend Paul Gens, Brenth didn't just want you to fly, they wanted you to experience flying. The airline was founded in 1930, but it didn't hit its true peak until the 1960s, when it became famous for its high-energy marketing and its dedication to going above and beyond to create a sense of luxury. Their marketing campaigns weren't just ads, they were performances. They had planes and colors so bright they made a rainbow look dull. The airline even boasted it's the end of the plain plane campaign, with bright orange, yellow, and pink planes. Flying with Brenth wasn't just about getting from point A to point B, it was about feeling like you were living the dream. But then came the ultimate plot twist. The airline's fabulousness couldn't keep them afloat. Brenth had a huge debt problem, and while their boldness initially worked, it wasn't sustainable in the competitive 1970s airline market. Brenth went bankrupt in 1982, leaving behind a legacy of style and flair, but with a broken financial foundation. Here's the shocking part. Brenth's rise and fall may have been due to its boldness, but it also showed the danger of trying to outrun financial reality with just a cool brand. Sometimes, no matter how flashy your plane is, you still have to make sure you have your numbers right. And then there's Pedmont Airlines. Pedmont, founded in 1948, didn't have the same glam factor as Brenth, but it built a reputation for excellent customer service and a solid route network. Known for operating as a regional carrier, Pedmont provided service primarily in the eastern United States and was a consistent performer in the industry. The airline even boasted an impressive safety record, a rare feat in the high-stakes world of aviation. However, Pedmont's story took a turn in 1989, when it was acquired by US Airways. The acquisition of Pedmont added to US Airways' presence in the East and helped them grow significantly. While Pedmont no longer exists as its own entity, it contributed to the expansion of US Airways, which eventually merged with American Airlines. The twist here? Pedmont was known for a conservative and no-nonsense approach to air travel, everything Brenth was not. It just goes to show that sometimes, steady wins the race, even if you don't have a neon pink plane to boast about. Pacific Southwest Airlines. Pacific Southwest Airlines, or PSA, was without a doubt the coolest airline to have ever flown. Founded in 1949, PSA was the West Coast answer to the glamour of air travel, and they built their brand around fun. PSA wasn't just any airline. They were known for their charismatic flight attendants, who were often referred to as hostesses back in the day, and a fun, vibrant atmosphere that made flying feel more like a party than a stressful ordeal. They were the first to introduce palm tree logos on their planes and the first to decorate aircraft interiors with colorful motifs and screamed California. Here's the twist. While PSA's brand was high energy and full of life, it was ultimately swallowed up by US Airways in 1988. That's right, PSA, the West Coast's darling airline, was snatched up by a much larger competitor. While the merger made perfect business sense at the time, the loss of PSA's unique brand left a hole in the hearts of many travelers who had fallen in love with its quirky, laid-back style. The shocking part? PSA had been profitable right until its acquisition, but the rapid consolidation of the airline industry was too overwhelming to resist. It was a case of being too good to last. PSA had been a pioneer in low-cost, short-haul flights, often flying from major cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego. They were also one of the first to focus on quick, affordable flights with fantastic service, which was a rarity in the days before budget carriers became the norm. PSA was beloved, and it's safe to say that if they had survived longer, they would have carved out a much larger slice of the aviation market. But alas, the PSA spirit was absorbed into the massive corporate machine of US Airways, and the dream of fun flying was officially over. Mohawk Airlines and Capital Airlines. Mohawk Airlines had a name that made you think of the open skies and bold adventures, but it was a regional airline with its roots firmly planted in the Northeast. Founded in 1945, Mohawk made a name for itself by serving smaller regional airports, bringing an unexpected level of comfort and service to the underserved markets. Mohawk's planes might not have been the flashiest, but their reputation for reliability and customer service was top-notch. They were one of the first airlines to provide air travel to the smaller cities that big carriers ignored. However, by the 1970s, as the airline industry became more deregulated, competition grew fierce. Unfortunately, Mohawk couldn't keep up with the growing power of larger airlines. In 1972, Mohawk merged with Allegheny Airlines, which later became US Airways. And while it was a most necessary move for survival, It also marked the end of Mohawk as an independent airline. Their legacy lived on, but in a very different form. Now, Capital Airlines wasn't exactly the same as Mohawk, but it shared a similar fate. Founded in 1934, Capital Airlines was known for its no-nonsense approach to their travel, primarily serving the Midwest and Eastern U.S. Their distinctive red and white planes became a common sight in airports. However, like Mohawk, Capital Airlines couldn't withstand the changing tides of the airline industry. In 1961, they merged with United Airlines, and the Capital brand faded into history. What's shocking is that Capital was once a key player in the industry but ultimately couldn't compete with the big dogs, and its merger became yet another cog in the larger machine of air travel. Despite their fades into obscurity, Mohawk and Capital Airlines were critical to the evolution of the aviation industry. They were among the smaller carriers that paved the way for larger, more interconnected routes, making it easier for everyone to fly, not just the wealthy. Today, their legacies live on in the form of the sprawling network of airline routes that dominate the skies.